Good evening, it is now 6:30, and I will call to order the Monday, November 28th, 2016 Burnsville Planning Commission. Commissioners, thank you for your time this evening. Staff, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The first item on our agenda this evening is the adoption of the posted agenda. Commissioners, do you have any additions or changes to the agenda? None from commissioners, any from staff?
None.
Hearing none, I would stand for a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Walter, second by Commissioner Levy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. The second item on our agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from the November 14th, 2016 Planning Commission. Commissioners, do you have any changes to the minutes? None from the commissioners, staff?
No changes.
Staff. Hearing no changes, I would stand for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Commissioner Singh,
Second.
second by Commissioner Workman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. That brings us to the third item on our agenda this evening. And the third item is a public hearing, approve an application for Verizon Wireless for a conditional use permit amendment to allow the installation of telecommunications facility, including a 94-foot tower and associated ground-mounted mechanical equipment located in Lot 1, Block 3, Burnhaven. Our presenter this evening is Ms. Dean. Regina, you have the floor. Thank
Good
you.
evening, Chair, members of the commission. Before I get started, I just want to let the commission know and the viewing audience know that if you visited our website to take a look at the Planning Commission reports, there's two different versions. There's an online agenda version and a downloaded agenda version. One has a PDF icon and one has a little note type icon. So one is was a draft form of the staff report. The report for the record would be the online agenda version. Planning Commission has received a copy of the accurate report as well as the applicant as well. And again, the online agenda version is accurate. So with that, the first item, Verizon Wireless, we do have the applicant in the audience, Kurt Walter with Buell Consulting, representing the applicant. So the specific site location is located west of Burnhaven Drive. The site is currently surrounded by B3 to the north, to the south, and to the east. To the south and southwest is single-family residential, low-density residential properties. This gives you a better overview of the surrounding conditions. The property was initially platted in 1972, and in 2000, an application was brought forward to the city for a conditional use permit for outdoor storage of vehicles, which was approved for the lower portion of the lot. The northern portion of the lot was an expansion of that plan. Also installed was a stormwater pond, and this was to take care of the stormwater runoff for not only the parking lot, but to accommodate a potential future building that could come forward at some point on the property. That would be a separate application, separate review that would be required for that. This specific request would be an amendment to that original 2000 conditional use permit. The tower location is located on the very north portion of the lot. Currently, it's a landscaped area. Green grass basically grows there. The tower height is proposed at 94 feet. That does include the lightning antenna at the top, so it's 90 feet plus an additional 4 feet for a total of 94. The proposed tower does meet setbacks for the side, for the rear setbacks, and it also does meet setback requirements from neighboring residential properties based off of the height and location, as well as the distance requirement per our city code to the right-of-way as well. This gives you a better idea of the site plan and where this is located. The applicant will be leasing space, approximately 1,700 square feet of leasable land. There will also be a access easement that will be recorded as part of the approvals off of Burnhaven, coming through the parking lot for access, driveway access, and then, of course, the lease space. Within the leasable area, we have the tower, mechanical equipment, and a generator as part of that. It will be surrounded by a cedar fence of 8 feet tall, which does meet our city code requirements for business districts. This gives you an overview of what the tower looks like. It is stealth, which means there are no antenna attachments on the outside. All of the antenna and related equipment would be located inside the tower. Tower is proposed to be a galvanized gray color. Staff is recommending that the tower is painted gray. Staff is also recommending that the building, it's currently proposed as metal. Staff is requesting that prior to building permit approval, that the exterior of the building meets city code requirements. And a variety of application of exterior could be affixed to the exterior of the building or adjacent to it so that it blends in with a typical business. This gives you an overview of different views from various points throughout the city and how visible or not visible the tower would be. This is from nearby adjacent city-owned park. This is a view from Burnhaven. And this is a view from the residential area to the southwest. Of course, this is during summer with leaf-on conditions, but there is a topography change, and staff believes that the tower will be viewed minimally from the adjacent residential. I do also want to point out city staff with the applicant did hold a neighborhood meeting on November 15th here at City Hall. It's always suggested when the city believes that there could be controversy with a proposal that the applicant host a meeting. Notices were sent to about 30 property owners, and nobody attended that evening. Of course, a property owner does always have the right to come and speak at a public hearing such as tonight or at city council in the future. I also want to point out that there is existing vegetation on site that helps to screen the proposed leased space, mature vegetation. One of the things that you'll see in the report is a comment about screening and landscaping that unfortunately city staff wasn't able to determine if the landscaping that was installed as part of that 2000 approval was indeed living and viable today because of winter conditions. So we do have a condition that's in the recommended in the report that speaks to requiring the property owner to demonstrate that landscaping has been met. And in the recommendations, I believe it's July 31st, 2017 date. We're requesting compliance. It's very well could be that they're in compliance now. With that, staff does recommend approval. Do feel it meets the requirements in the antennas and towers section of city code, as well as any conditional use permit requirements. So I'll just go ahead and read the various conditions that all provisions from previously approved conditional use permits shall remain in full force and effect. That prior to building permit issuance, the applicant shall revise the exterior elevations of the mechanical equipment building to meet the accessory structure building material standards for business districts. This is consistent with principal building material standards as well. That prior to building permit issuance, that the applicant shall provide recorded copies of all access, utility easements associated with the tower and equipment project. Any exterior lights that are associated with the building shall be downcast and shielded, and that the antenna shall be built per plan, stealth, and painted gray, and that no additional antennas shall be permitted on the exterior of the stealth tower. And that the property owner shall verify that the landscaping is installed in compliance with that 2000 plan. And that any landscaping shall be missing from that approval shall be installed by July 31st, 2017. With that, I'd open it up to any questions from the commission. Certainly, like I had mentioned, the applicant is here as well.
Thank you, Ms. Dean. Commissioners, questions for staff? Well, I have a couple. The condition number 3 about utility easements, typically in the past, that's been a concern, or we've had to talk about how they're actually hooking the pole up to the network. Is that, and I know the last couple of times we've done that in a park, there's been an issue with how do they get the information from the pole to the network. I'm assuming that's not an issue here along the property, or?
We'll want to make sure that not only is this accessible to the current applicant, but also accessible to any future applicants so that they can hook up with their respective networks, that the language addresses that. And that's something I feel comfortable that we can work through
Okay.
with the applicant and with our city attorney.
I would assume that would be somewhere along the Walzer property to get to the tower. I'm
Correct.
assuming they're gonna have to bring the data from the street from Burnhaven?
The technicalities of that, I'm not exactly sure how that works. Maybe the applicant.
As long as they're not
can answer
asking
that.
for it, I know that it's been asked in the past.
Okay.
And since we're requiring the stealth pole, does that limit our city request in the future for commingling? I don't know, maybe we've done stealth poles in the past and they can still commingle? They can, okay.
They can.
Okay. And then Walzer would be responsible to fix the landscaping if it needs, not the applicant?
That is correct.
Okay. That's all the questions I have. You have a question?
No, I
No.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Levy?
thank you. To clarify what you're saying, Walzer owns the property, and they've got the 2004 CUP, so they're responsible for the landscaping? Is that what you were saying?
Yes.
That's
Okay,
correct.
I wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
And the applicant's just leasing the space from,
Got it.
we do this a lot with the city, and then they're leasing it from the city, leasing the space on the park.
That's correct.
So, okay, commissioners, any questions? Kind of a straightforward any questions of the applicant?
I have a question for the applicant.
Commissioner Workman, if the applicant could come up, please give us your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Kurt Walter from Buell Consulting. I do represent Verizon Wireless. I'm out of Rochester, 2897 Lake Vista Drive, Northwest in Rochester. Be here to answer any of
Welcome
your
to
questions.
Burnsville.
Thank you. I've
Commissioner-
had family members living here before, so I love Burnsville.
You should move here. Mr. Walter, I just have a quick softball question. As far as the paint on the tower goes, is that pretty durable to the elements with wear and tear and the aesthetics over time?
As much as paint can be on metal. I mean,
Okay.
it's a galvanized pole to begin with, and then they put paint on it. So if you leave it as a galvanized pole, it kind of tends to, well, it oxidizes and kind of just, if it's cloudy out, it tends to look cloudy, and if it's bright out, it tends to look bright. A regular galvanized pole is easier maintenance-wise for us, but we're certainly happy to paint it too. I mean, you'll have to repaint it. Sometimes places work better than others, but
Okay. And that kind of was my question, is there a process if it does start to chip and deteriorate to put a
Yeah.
fresh coat of paint on if needed?
yeah, no, it's pretty standard.
Okay. I just wasn't sure about that. I'm kind of ignorant to this process, so.
Yes.
All right, thank you. That's
It's durable. We want as least maintenance as possible, so
Okay. Thank you.
you bet.
Commissioners, Commissioner Levy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here, and hope you have a safe trip back, given the weather today. I assume the whole pole is not galvanized steel, that somewhere there has to be access for the waves to get out of the pole?
Yes.
The top some amount.
Yes, very quickly and easily, if we can you put this one,
Oh, yeah.
then I can point.
They'll pick it up. There you go. They're very good at
Yeah,
that.
look at that. We've got basically 3 different spots in here for antennas. And Verizon uses the upper 2 spots, and then the 3rd spot is used for any future co-locator that wants to use our tower. These particular spots are not galvanized. They allow radio frequencies in and out of it. But the rest of this is all galvanized pole. There's holes in the bottom, ports, where, you know, cables go in and out, that kind of stuff. But the pole's otherwise galvanized from here down, and everything up here matches, so.
So I assume it's a plastic or a composite of some sort on the top part, and that color will then match the rest of the pole?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
There is a water tower south of there, on top of the hill. From a technical point of view, wouldn't a higher location be better?
No, actually, it's, take this with a grain of salt, because I'm not an engineer, but I've done this for 19 years, so I know a lot about it. But basically, the metro area is covered. I mean, you can stand here. You could stand where this pole is being proposed, and you have coverage. What we're doing now is filling in the holes where the existing sites we have are getting close to or reaching their capacity. Each tower site can only handle so much traffic. And everybody's got a smartphone, everybody's streaming everything now. A lot of homes are running through these, you know, streaming movies and everything. So we're basically filling capacity, so it's more of location, and we need to be in this particular spot in between 2 sites or 3 sites we already have. So height really doesn't have much to do with it anymore, and we need height. We're looking at 90 feet here for the center of our antennas. Nothing around there was tall enough that we could use that could connect to every other tower we have. Elevation is not what we're looking for anymore.
Understood. Thank you. That
You're welcome.
was a question I had.
If there was a question about utilities and access, if we take a look at this, we have currently in the right-of-way, there is a lot of stuff in the right-of-way. So we're having a separate utility access just inside the right-of-way that's gonna pull power from existing transformers down here. There's a whole bunch of them. We're gonna pull power there all the way over to here, and then we're gonna pick up a fiber from the right-of-way and transfer it all the way in. It's all inside Walter's property lines. And then right over here, there's gonna be a, bam, right there, a hole in the ground where the hand hole where all the fiber runs through and stuff, so.
Okay.
All the utilities will be there. It's available for anybody else to attach on through the conduits, everything like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would assume that the area that will be leased by Verizon Wireless from Walser will be fenced,
Correct.
okay? And can you say what type of fencing would?
I believe it's a 8-foot cedar fence.
That's correct.
Get to the right page.
Oh, yes, that's right, thank you.
Hate to misrepresent anything here.
I think that was in
It
Ms.
is
Dean's
a-
background.
Yeah, it was in the report.
Yeah, it's in
Yes,
there.
I find it. My reason for asking is that we truly need to do whatever we can to prevent kids from getting in there. And that's why I asked the question, the 8-foot fence, you know, they can get over there if they want.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it's reasonable to keep them out.
Yes, and these stealth poles are pretty much solid. You get the old monopoles where you have all the antennas hanging off. They have hand holds on it. These ones don't.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Commissioner Levy, one more question.
Yeah, so how do you get to service the antenna?
You get a crane.
A crane,
Or a-
okay,
Or a cherry picker, whatever.
okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and at this point, I'd like to open the public hearing and ask anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this item to please step up to the podium and give us your name and address for the record. Welcome. Give us your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, sure. Gary Garso, I'm at 900 West Crystal Lake Road, one of the properties that abut this. Sorry, I did get the notice of the other meeting, but I was out of town, so I wasn't able to come. Do have some concerns. I overlooked the property, and in the picture that you show, I see all those lights, so I will be able to see that very clearly from now through foliage time in the spring, so. My question's why there? Why not at the other corner of the property? Why not one of the other places? If it truly isn't a height issue anywhere around there, I'm a Verizon customer, so I get fine service where I'm at, so, but I understand where they're going. I'm also an engineer, so I understand its problem, so, but, so it just, why there? Why not? There's all kinds of businesses there that, it may not be as a big a distraction to those guys as it is to property owners, so, but I look right out my back window at that and all the lights in the Toyota dealer with the new building going up that's going there. And it just seems that it might be out of scale here, because where the property is, or where that pole will go, it's higher than the property for the Toyota dealer. So it just seems like it should be a little higher than, their building's probably 30 feet, 30, 40 feet, so. Anyway, my concerns is visibility of that thing. Why could it go on the other corner of the property or across the street on the other property where there's, just as good of access as anything else, so. That's my concern and issue, so.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
And we got the name and address? We got-
did.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else in the audience this evening that would like to speak to the item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. And, go ahead, come on, but I would like to have you step back up to the podium.
Can you pull up the aerial with everybody?
This one?
Can I point or anything on that one?
I don't think it'll pick up.
Okay, if we
but-
take a look at everything on the east side of Burnhaven, I talked with every landowner there. They're all car dealers. They will not, no car dealer will, each car lot parking stall is worth X amount of dollars to them, period. Talked to every single one of them up and down. Our footprint takes up some space. Nothing on the east side of Burnhaven was available to us. We can't get any closer south and meet any of the same setbacks, so we couldn't come any closer to the property. And then right where the parking lot is to the north, from Walzer's property to the next one to the north, it drops, where we're at, it probably drops about 10 feet.
About 10 feet, I was there yesterday.
Yeah, it drops about 10 feet, so it's really tough for us to move the tower any farther to the east. Landowners to the north would not be interested. They were interested if we put it in the farthest part of their property to the west, which is again a retention pond. And their retention pond comes right in there. There's, in our proposed spot, there's a square where
There's a
we
little
can go.
corner where they're not parking cars today.
Exactly, and that doesn't happen on the one to the property to the north. So that's why we picked that location. I've talked to everybody, I knocked on everybody's doors up and down that road. We wanted to stay as far away from the residential as we could. We're hoping that, it's a pole, it's 94 feet tall. You're gonna see it, but it's not as ugly as some of the original ones.
Okay,
So that's how we're trying to deal with that.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, other comments or discussion? You have the floor. Nope, no questions? At this point, I would entertain a motion. Commissioner Levy.
Mr. Chair, I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council the approval of the CUP amendment to allow the installation of a telecommunications facility, including a 94-foot tower and associated ground-mounted mechanical equipment located on Lot 1, Block 3, Burnhaven, subject to the 6 conditions as printed in our handout.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Walter, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. That'll go in front of the City Council on December 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
That brings us to the third item on our agenda this evening, and that is also Ms. Dean's, so she didn't have to leave. The review of a tax increment plan number 8 for consistency with our comprehensive plan. This is not a public hearing, Commissioner, so Ms. Dean's going to do a presentation. We'll have questions of staff, and then we will vote. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. The city has received a request to create a tax increment financing district for the particular site located here at 12100 Portland Avenue South. This would be TIF District Number 8, as described by the chair. This particular location is an industrial zone property. It's guided industrial. Surrounding area, you'll see the school, cemetery to the south, and some small industrial buildings. The Planning Commission's role is to determine if this request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. This was reviewed by the Economic Development Commission about a couple of weeks ago. I think on November 15th or 16th. As you can see from the site, it's heavily wooded. There are also some topography issues with the site. When the city was approached by a developer, Industrial Equities, they're interested in developing the site, however, brought to the city's attention that this would be difficult or impossible to construct on without some assistance. The site also has some issues with stormwater as well, and where that could be located, again, based off of the topography. So the Planning Commission's role, again, to review the relevant comp plan sections of the 2030 plan, so that's what we're comparing this to. The particular site was highlighted as a vacant parcel and underutilized land. And since that plan was adopted, nothing's happened to the site. Parcels have been parceled off for construction, but because of the topography issues, the site has remained. If this is approved, this will allow for potential industrial growth, which was highlighted in the comprehensive plan. The proposal, should the TIF district be approved and the developer would eventually come back to the city with the application for a office warehouse building from 70,000 to 100,000 square feet is what we understand. That would allow for, again, office warehouse, which is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It's guided industrial office as part of our land use category. Approval of a TIF district, that is consistent with our economic incentives chapter of our comp plan. And again, this was reviewed by the EDC a couple of weeks ago, and it was supported. I believe 5-0 was the vote. So again, planning considerations You'll want to make sure that the proposal is consistent with the comp plan. We've highlighted the unique topography of the site. There is opportunity for development to occur should the economic incentives or TIF be in place. And new development will help generate tax revenue and employment opportunities, which again is highlighted in our comp plan and city policies and goals. Again, role of the planning commission is to ensure that the TIF proposal or TIF plan is consistent with the comp plan. And staff does believe that it is consistent with the policies and goals listed and the items highlighted. Staff does recommend that the planning commission adopt a resolution finding that the TIF plan number 8 is consistent with the comp plan. With that, I'm here for any questions. Also in the audience, we have Skip Nienhaus if there's any specific questions from an economic development standpoint.
Thank you, Ms. Dean. Commissioners, questions of staff? Commissioner Levie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Who currently owns the land?
Industrial Equities.
Okay, so it is a private.
It is a
deal.
private entity.
Okay.
There have been approvals in the past throughout the city for office, warehouse type development by the same company. And from what I understand, the product is very well received and the property owner does a good job with their properties.
Could you explain TIF and how that works? I've heard it all over the state, and can you explain what it does, how it works?
I think I'm gonna maybe lean on Skip for the model that we use, and I think he can maybe give a quick, brief overview.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, in its basic form, you have a piece of property that currently generates a certain amount of taxes. Once a development occurs on that piece of property, the amount of taxes generated by that property increase. The difference between your base property and your developed property is what is referred to as increment. That's the number that we would utilize from a business subsidy standpoint. There are some state costs that come out of there and some administrative costs that come out of there. The type of district that we're proposing for this site is what is referred to as an economic development district. One of the uses in an economic development district is warehousing. The proposed development here would be an office warehouse site, so it would qualify. The payout on an economic development district is over 9 years. In the city of Burnsville, we utilize what is referred to as a pay-go system, which means once the taxpayer pays their taxes, we then send them a check twice a year for their eligible increment, as opposed to us providing them all of the increment up front and hoping that they pay the taxes and do the development and everything else. So we've always followed the pay-go is a very safe system in which we do it. Should throughout that 9 years, should there be any issues with the development or anything else that would put that contract in a default status, we would stop those payments until that default status is corrected. And that has traditionally been the way we've done our TIF districts. Hopefully that answers your question.
It did, I think. Thank you.
Commissioners, other questions of staff? Commissioner Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is something that has been done before. We are talking about here now the proposed TIF 8 district, and tax increment financing is done to help the proprietor to develop the area, and then the payback to the city is what we get increased taxes because of the development. And I think this is something that is it helps cities. And I'm sure the reason why it's before us, it's designed to help the city of Burnsville to get the property developable, that's the correct word, and later to get more property taxes because of the development. So I think it's a good move, and I would support it when the resolution comes up.
Thank you. Commissioner Singh. In 9 years, it would just decertify, just like any of our other TIF districts. It comes back in front of the council and they decertify the TIF district? Is that how
That
it
would
works?
be correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Are they always 9 years, or are some of them?
They, depending on the type of district, it can go anywhere from 9 years, which is economic development, to up to 20 years.
So like South Cross was like 20 years?
South Cross, yes, South Cross was
Okay.
20 years.
Okay. Thank you.
Just have one quick question, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Workman, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is proposed for maybe 1 or 2 tenants, correct? If that's the goal of staff, is to limit the,
If I can answer that. Right now, we don't know if this will be a single tenant or a multi-tenant type situation. We do know that it will be, there will be a warehouse component and that it will need to meet our, ultimately our performance standards and our permitted uses that are listed in our city code. But the details of it,
it's too
it's
soon?
too early to know.
Sure. I guess the only reason I ask is because the only thing that I got a question on is the traffic in that area with the high school in the morning. I know it can get heavy. And so I would assume that there would be a traffic study conducted prior to any type of construction in that area, just to make sure that they're not overloading.
As part of a proposal, should that come forward, and we're anticipating, I think sometime next year, should this all go through, that's something that would be evaluated by our engineering department to determine what level of study may or may not be needed. But it's very possible, depending on the demand or the traffic, that one could be warranted.
Okay.
Commis-
Mr. Chair, I could possibly help the commissioner. This will be a build-to-suit building. It will not be a spec building. If the TIF plan is approved, the applicant is then going to go out and actually clear the site, bring in the fill, do the retaining wall, and get it to a marketable state. So the traffic issue will be somewhat lessened because their hope would be to do 1 tenant, but they could do 2. But as opposed to an office warehouse spec building where you would have 5 or 6 tenants with obviously a lot more employees. But Regina is correct. Obviously, if our city engineer requires a traffic study prior to the construction and development, that would come before you.
Okay. That was my only concern about everything. And I know it was mentioned in the TIF plan briefly, so thank you.
Commissioner Workman, thank you very much. Any other further questions? Commissioner Levy.
I have a problem with eliminating green space. I understand that the property is privately owned. If it were not, I'd really object to this, but considering it is privately owned and not accepting it would limit the owner's ability to do something, I not wholeheartedly accept the idea.
Thank you, Commissioner Levy. Commissioner Singh.
Mr. Chair, I would like just to speak on Commissioner Levy's concern. I think when the area is being developed, then green space comes into question. And whatever requirement is there from the city, they will have to abide by that. We're not doing away with green space per se. If there's going to be a warehouse, if it's development, you will have the warehouse development, but there will still be green space that is consistent with what we're doing with other development.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other further questions, commissioners? Okay. Commissioners,
Mr.
I
Chair,
would stand for a motion.
in absence of a formal resolution format, I recommend that, I move that the Planning Commission recommend the adoption of a resolution finding TIF Plan Number 8 consistent with the City of Burnsville's comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Workman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Thank you very much, Commissioners. This will go to probably the EDA on the 6th.
Mr. Chair, not too often we get Mr. Skip to come to our meeting.
I
so
know.
It's an honor to have him.
And we
Wanna
asked him to sit up
say
here on the
thanks.
dais, and he chose not to.
Say thanks for coming and explaining
Thank-
things to us.
Thanks for coming and spending some time with us, sir. We appreciate it. That brings us to the last item on our agenda this evening, and that is updates. And commissioners, do you have any updates? None? Staff, you have our next agenda.
Yes, I have a copy of the next agenda, December 12th, 2016. Do note that the second meeting in December will be canceled. And I do also want to make a note that the next comprehensive plan panel meeting is tentatively scheduled for January 30th, which is the third Monday of the month. It's pretty rare that we get a third Monday, but that is tentatively scheduled here at City Hall. I will keep you all posted as well as the rest of the panel.
What meeting was that?
It's the comprehensive plan panel.
Sorry, I was,
And that'll be at the maintenance center as usual?
I believe it will be here at City Hall,
As usual?
but you'll receive a formal email as well as the rest of the panel confirming the date and location.
All right.
That's all I
Thank you
have.
very much.
You're welcome.
Commissioners, I would entertain an adjournment.
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Levy, seconded by Commissioner Workman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay, and the motion carries. Everyone have a safe drive home this evening, and thanks for coming.